then we'll open it up and take a few questions.
How an ROV, how an ROV would work, sir? It's tethered to a ship and what it can see, and then could it actually hug or something?
So each of the ROVs, so that's kind of a vague question, right? ROVs have different capability. It's our understanding the current ROV that is deployed at the site now has some limited capability. It has a camera on board, but again, each of those is different, and we'll be gathering more information as that operation goes on through the day.
Captain, it's Tom Costello with NBC News. If your submersibles can find this sub, is there any way to retrieve it and save the people on board?
Yeah, so right now all of our efforts are focused on finding the sub. What I will tell you is we have a group of our nation's best experts in the Unified Command, and if we get to that point, those experts will be looking at what the next course of action is.
Captain, how many hours of oxygen are left that you know of, or that you can estimate right now on the submersible? And does it have to be approved or regulated?
Sure. So first of all, it's an estimate, right? Because we know from the data we were using as a starting point was 96 hours. We know at this point we're approximately about 41 hours.
41 hours left.
Yes.
And does it have to be approved or regulated, this submersible? Does it go through anything that you know of?
Yeah, I'm not sure of the exact technical piece of that. We know there's about 40 hours of breathable air left based on that initial report. Again, that was just the initial report based on 96 hours from when the vessel.
Captain, even with that amount of time that's left, let's say 41 hours or so, if you were to find the submersible at this moment, would that give you enough time to save these 5 people on board?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that question. What I will tell you is we will do everything in our power to effect a rescue. Again, it's going to depend on if the ROV finds something. It's going to depend on what they find, what needs to be, what steps need to be taken next, and really that is for the experts with the Unified Command to take a look at, and then decide what the best course of action is.
It seems to have taken the mothership vessel, or those running this operation, about 8 hours to contact you on Sunday after they lost contact with the sub. Is that a cause for concern?
Listen, right now, our effort and our focus is on searching with what we know. As soon as we received the report on Sunday evening, we immediately launched search efforts. We flew assets that evening, and we've continued constant surface and air asset searches since that point.
You mentioned that the search operation is very complicated. What are the biggest challenges you're facing?
Well, this is a complex search, and it's complex for a variety of reasons. You're talking about a search area that's 900 miles east of Cape Cod, 400 miles south of St. John's. So logistically speaking, it's hard to bring assets to bear. It takes time, it takes coordination. And then we're dealing with, two pieces of, you're dealing with a surface search and a subsurface search, and frankly, that makes it an incredibly complex operation.
Captain, will the U.S. Navy or the Canadian Navy be able to get salvage equipment on time before the air runs out?
Obviously, getting salvage equipment on scene is a top priority. Unified Command is working through that to prioritize what equipment we can get there. There are ongoing operations right now via the U.S. Navy and Transcom to get equipment staged in St. John's and to get it on scene. I can't give you an exact timeline of when that's going to happen, but what I can tell you is there is a full court press effort to get equipment on scene as quickly as we can.
Is that equipment already on the East Coast, though, or is it coming from the Pacific, for example?
No, so some of the equipment that's coming is coming from the East Coast, but again, we're talking about very heavy equipment. It's a complicated transport operation, but the best professionals in the world are working it, and that's U.S. Transcom.
When it comes to the equipment, can you go into more detail? Do you have a curve 21 that's being shipped up to that location? And since you don't have a fleet tug vessel because the Apache was decommissioned, what other assets you have? You have civilian ships.
Yeah, so like I said, there are several civilian ships that have offered services heading that way. There are additional Coast Guard cutters. We hope to have a Canadian Coast Guard cutter on scene this evening. We hope that they may be able to assume on-scene commander Polar Prince has been doing a great job with those duties, but if we could take some of that from them, that would be good. But your question about specific equipment, I'm not going to get into talking about specific equipment. Frankly, I'm not an expert on what that equipment is, but again, I can tell you we have experts in the Unified Command that are going through that, prioritizing what we need, and then how we get it on scene.
Can you tell us about the personnel from Boston? How many people from here are out there? So what equipment?
From Boston specifically.
Yeah, from Boston.
So Boston, where Boston plays a role is the command center, the rescue and coordination center is here in Boston. The aircraft that are coming in are coming from different locations, but the command structure is being worked out of Boston. And I think we have time for 2 more questions.
In all your experience, just how unique is the Coast Guard ever had to deal with it?
Well, I don't want to speak about if the Coast Guard has ever. I would tell you it's a unique operation, it's a challenging operation, but right now we're focused on putting everything we can at it and searching as hard as we can and getting the assets out there as quickly as we can.
And so you private companies, the other assets that are rushing to the area, what sort of assets do they have? Do they have ROVs? Do they have similar technology that OceanGate?
Yeah, there are some additional assets with ROVs. There is one asset that is working to get on scene with a decompression chamber. So those are all pieces that are coming together, and we're working those logistical challenges to get them there. And I think we'll take one more.
Is a rescue a realistic prospect? What would that look like?
Well, I can't tell you exactly what it would look like. I would tell you that we are out there, we're searching. We wouldn't be doing this. We wouldn't be searching and putting all effort out there. I think that if the sub is located, that's a question that then the experts need to look at what is the best course of action for recovering the sub. But I think it's going to depend on that particular situation and if we encounter that.
Sir, is it true that the British offered assistance and they were told we don't need your assistance at this point?
No, I'm not aware of that. Again, what I would tell you though is that the Unified Command is working through prioritizing. We know that there's equipment out there that can be brought to the scene. The Unified Command is working through prioritizing what equipment we need and then how we get it there.
And the French are also responding to ship as well?
Yes, that's my understanding, correct. And I think we're going to wrap it there. Yep, thank you.
Thank you, Jack.
Thank you. I really appreciate you guys coming out today. Include this portion of the brief on there. I can stay behind just to take some additional stuff that maybe wasn't answered. We can try to get some information back to you kind of a little later.
Can you clarify the question about the men in here who are based in Boston?
Yeah.
So are they not out there? Are they just working here?
Right. So the Rescue Coordination Center that he's talking about specifically, that's based in Boston. So the personnel that are working in the command and control environment, as far as building a lot of the search and rescue plans, sending out the information, coordinating those pieces, are here. The people affecting the mission, so the pilots, the air crews, all of the ships, those are based out of different areas. So our pilots, air crews are out of Elizabeth City, North Carolina. The Coast Guard cutter Sycamore, I believe, is out of Newport, Rhode Island, but they were operating already in the Arctic. So there are a number of people that are here working in that staff element, but are not physically located out in the search area, if that makes sense.
Command and control.
It is, yes.
It sounds like
have another submersible that they could try to set on there.
I don't know.
They just have
It sounds like, for the most part, the staging area is moving to St. John's.
So I believe, yeah, a lot of it into St. John, Newfoundland, right?
Yes.
Yeah. That's so our aircraft, the C-130 aircraft, they're based out of there as well. So I know there is a number of pieces going out there. Logistically, it's easier as opposed to from here.
Talked about Transcom and organizing the different assets available. I asked Transcom, and I think it over to you guys.
Okay.
So can you give a little bit more clarity on what kind of assets you have put in the water? I specifically asked about the Curve 21. But
Yeah.
Is there one on the way?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. So I know a lot of those questions were unanswered on there, and it's a lot of it's because we're not the right agency to be asking that. I know as in the command we should be to be the one to give the answer to you, but we want you guys to hear it from the subject matter experts. So that's our next plan, is what we want to do is give an opportunity for you all to get all of the subject matter experts we can into one location to kind of get those questions answered, to give you kind of the best thing we can do.
You anticipate in those 40 hours, when that becomes a recovery mission, if you choose to do a recovery mission? Is that
I'm sorry,
your plan? when those 40 hours
yeah,
are up that
yeah.
you gave for the estimate, is that the moment you shift from a search and rescue to a recovery operation, if you choose to do a recovery operation, given the difficulties?
I think it really depends on a number of factors. So anything that could change between now and then, as far as information response, things like that could change that. So it's not a hard and fast, timer's up, time to transition. There's a lot of factors that go into it that could extend something like that.
Excuse me, what role does the amount of oxygen play in one of those factors? And with 40 hours of oxygen left, when would you then transition from a search and rescue to a search and recovery?
I don't know an answer to that. That's definitely outside, but we can try to get back to, as we transition through that phase, we'll have better answers for that.
Is there information about the conditions out there? Like, what exactly are Coast Guard facing?
So the weather wise, yep. So actually I have, I believe the weather on scene today was 5 to 6 foot seas.
What does that mean, sir? Sorry, like the wave?
So wave height, 5 to 6 feet. I believe it was 15 knot winds. Visibility was very foggy yesterday with very little nose visibility, but was increasing today, and they were expecting much better conditions from an aerial search perspective.
So it's like 6 waves today?
Yes.
And it's cleared in terms of visibility.
Yes.
High winds persist, or?
It was 15 knot winds. So in terms, it's about average out there, right?
Okay.
How long would it take a typical Coast Guard vessel from the U.S., or for that matter from Newfoundland, to get on site if they're running at maximum speed?
That depends on the cutter itself or the ship itself, because they all have different speeds.
Yeah. But do you have an average, just so we have a feel for how long it would take to get there?
Well, depending on where they're coming from, it could be a matter of 2 days up to 4 to 5 days. It just depends on where they would be deploying from.
2 days from Newfoundland, for example.
I don't know. We don't have any ships up there, so I don't know. I don't have an answer to that. The Canadian, we're trying to find out more information on the Canadian vessels that are assisting on there, sort of what their capability and speeds are. I just don't have an answer for you on that right now.
Does the Coast Guard have a line on a piece of equipment that is capable of going down to the Titanic?
The Coast Guard specifically, no. This type of a salvage operation in our expertise as an organization is...
No, in terms of private companies, have you reached...
So that's all part of the conversation with Unified Command to find out what capabilities are out there and explore all avenues that they can.
You're looking at that now.
The Coast Guard is usually pretty quick about releasing videos and photos and things like that from their operations. Is there a specific reason why you haven't from this operation?
We just haven't received any yet at this point.
And you don't expect to?
We do expect to get some. Like I said, we do have some graphics that we're trying to look to send out this afternoon, as well as we've reached out to the aircraft crews to get footage from them. Now I know with the ROVs that are on scene today, like I said, there just hasn't been any before, so we are requesting out there to try and see what we can get to go through that and try to make that available to you all.
If the submersible was discovered on the bottom of the ocean right now there are no assets on scene that could go retrieve it. Is that correct?
I don't know. I don't have an answer to that.
Coast Guard does not have any assets that could get it right now, correct?
The Coast Guard assets itself, no, we do not have any Coast Guard cutters on
Any
scene.
of the other ones that are on scene there?
No, so the research vessels, I just don't know what the capabilities are at that.
Do you think it's looking pretty unrealistic that it has made its way to the surface and its way seems to be spotted? Because you've done all of these aerial searches. Are you quite confident it's in the water?
That's why we have both types of assets, because we don't want to exhaust one possibility in vice of another. So we don't want to rule out that it is on the surface. And the way that our crews train, this is the environment they train in. They're specialized in being able to see these things from the air. So they've given it everything that they have to it. And if it's on the surface, we're fairly certain that we would be able to find it.
You would have by now.
No, that we will find it if it is on the surface.
Do you think it's more likely it's not?
It's impossible to say.
Can I just ask you to, I realize this may be challenging, you may not have the answer, but we're trying to get a sense of how far away the nearest naval asset would be that has that lift capability, salvage capability. Is it coming from North Carolina, from Florida, from Boston? Can you give us any idea of how far away it might be?
I don't have an answer to that. Yeah.
Do you know if anybody do you know if that vessel has a finger or some other way of communicating, or is that text?
From the research vessel?
The Titan itself.
Yeah. Oh, communicating with them? No,
Yeah.
I don't have specifics on technology on board.
We understand they've lost contact in the past on other expeditions. Has the Coast Guard ever been involved with them?
Not
And
to
did
my
they-
knowledge.
But OceanGate is cooperating with the investigation.
Absolutely. They're part of the unified command in here, so we're all making decisions together.
So did they have anything else that could go down? 13,000 feet.
I don't know, but if they do, it's definitely being discussed as far as their capabilities.
Would they tell you if they did? I mean, so it doesn't sound that hopeful, to be honest.
I don't understand.
Like, it sounds like the nearest vessel that it's not clear how long it would take to get a vessel there.
And that's the biggest part of the challenge of all of this, is trying to understand how the capabilities are working together, how they would do it, the technical aspect of that.
So if you're a family member or somebody on board, like, do you have a message for the family members?
I think it was clearly stay with Captain Frederick on there.
Could we ask you, could you just describe, if, the crush depth here? We're talking about 400 times, as I understand it, what we all experience at sea level. What can that do to a vessel?
I can't speak to the scientific side of that. Again, this is just more or less trying to get some background information for you guys on there. I don't have any of that information on that.
Can you tell us about what the circumstances were who would witness this point? I mean, submersible doesn't necessarily, it goes in for a dive and bobs right back
Yep.
up. It's not supposed to be there for that long. Is there?
And that would be a great question that we could try to get answered for you with that subject matter expert discussion that we talked about to get an opportunity for you guys to ask that question, because it'd be much more important and realistic for somebody within that community part of the command that would be able to answer that question a lot clearer than anything I would be able to. So,
And when might you provide your next update?
so we do have a press release that's going to be going out shortly with the graphics we talked about. Probably similar information to what was passed today. If any new information comes up, we'll update that. But I think ideally we'd be putting out press releases daily, and would look at probably doing another briefing tomorrow.
Can I just ask you one last?
Sorry, what's hold? I don't know.
Could you just reiterate for us? How big of an urgency is this for the Coast Guard? How big of a priority? Do you prioritize these things? In other words, do you classify them as priority red, 1, 2, 3? How big of a priority is this?
This operation is our top priority right now. Within the district, we have every available asset that we can that's to this that we can dedicate to it on this. That's why we are spending so much time and energy trying to coordinate really this enormous response effort to truly understand the scale of how far away this truly is, and in the context of the types of assets that we can get out there over something that's that enormous, something larger than the state of Connecticut, into perspective of what is available to be able to search in those kind of conditions so far offshore. Understand, 900 miles looks like is an enormous amount of distance.
Can I just ask, I mean, I put it to the person before, but is a deep sea rescue effort realistic, and what would that look like?
I don't know what it would look like. Realistic, and that's all part of the conversation in the Unified Command. They're looking at doing everything that they can to find out the options that are available.
Thanks, sir.
And family members have indicated the 5 people on board, but is there an official manifest or log saying exactly who was on that vessel?
There is
Will that
on
be
there.
released publicly?
So not until all the NIST notifications have been completed through that process can we release names in that way. I know that some have gotten out, but they have not been through us.
Okay.
But,
Thank you so much.
yeah, thank you. I really
Thank
appreciate
you
your
very
time
much
today.
for your
Thank you.
time.
And we'll send out an update when the next advisory or advisory will be out for you guys.
Are there any briefings happening up at St. John's?
Not that I'm aware of. Nothing that we are setting up. Now, I don't know if they are up there independently. I'm hoping that they would at least reach out to us to let us know so we could help kind of amplify that. But no.
If the Canadians take the on-site command out on the water, would then command move to St. John, or would it remain here? The ICC.
No, I think more or less what he's talking about with the ship being out there is they can actually control the assets that are physically on site as far as where they're going, less that the operation itself is in command. So it would be in here as the resources to come up with all of those plans, come up with all of the search and rescue operation side, that's will likely always stay here. When we say like an on-scene commander, they're just the one that's on scene physically that can communicate with everyone to make sure that we're deconflicting airspace, that we're covering the right areas, that people are searching the
But
right
you guys
spots.
collaborate every day, I'm guessing, right?
We do. This one's just especially challenging because you just add in an additional layer of distance, of time, of all those other elements with it.
Thank you.
Different questions. I was talking to Discover and Transcom. If it's not him and it's not you guys, who has the ball? So is Steve or Rouse?
So no, I think it was just what's likely we just probably disconnect there with communicating with their public affairs folks. That's the really challenging part we're having here right now. Is normally we like response operation, everybody's already
A lot of overlap.
and there isn't. This is it for us here. Everybody else is either in Canada, so we're just having it's just a challenge. I think that's just a problem. So let me see what I can get.
Yeah,
because that's not fair.
Yeah, because like the underwater salvage folks that are probably good for the remote vessel questions, but I think the guidance they're getting from Chinfo is go to the Coast Guard.
And so that's with the Navy. I'm sorry, what was your question directed towards when you asked?
Yeah.
No, who was it to you originally asked?
It was Scott. What's his name over at Trans? Scott Ross.
Scott.
Scott Ross.
I'll see what I can find out.
Yeah, exactly. It's first time, last time.
First